Colorado just churning away. Now, in reality, nothing really has happened at Colorado that Deion Sanders didn't strongly suggest would be happening. But the thing I told you to watch at Colorado is already kind of happening. It's just happening maybe a little bit earlier than I anticipated. Remember when Deion got there and everyone went crazy about it and a whole lot of YouTube videos got a whole lot of traffic, including on our channel, and all of a sudden everyone started talking about Deion Sanders because they realized, hey, that guy can make us a lot of money. His name's been that way for a long time. It just so happens that now it's attached to Colorado football, and so Colorado football as a byproduct is in the news. That you knew. What I suspected, and what is quickly coming to reality, is that hype and that attention would be disproportionate to the early success they were going to have, i.e., they were going to get Georgia, Bama, Ohio State attention, but they're not going to have Georgia, Bama, Ohio State results on the field immediately or in recruiting immediately, and people would come out of the woodwork and they would criticize. Now, Deion doesn't write the headlines. Colorado doesn't write the headlines. They don't make the videos. Actually, in some cases they do because they have their own channels, but you get my point. You cannot manufacture that kind of hype. You've got to have it happen organically, and it's happened organically, and it's rubbed some people the wrong way, and that's fine. You like what you like. You don't like what you don't like. That's the entire ethos of our channel. We run with what you want to hear. But the reason I'm mentioning all that is because we're about to run into it a little bit earlier than I expected. What I expected to happen was this fall, they were going to lose some games, and people were going to say, see, I told you they were frauds. I've warned you about that. Well, what's happening right now is they're losing a bunch of guys to the transfer portal, and people are saying, oh, looks like it was all smoke and mirrors out there. Maybe people don't want to be associated with that Colorado program. Let me remind you, nothing's happening right now that Deion did not say was going to happen. Nothing has happened that they didn't, in some ways, orchestrate themselves. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you in Nashville, Tennessee tonight, I'm not telling you that every kid they've lost, they wanted to lose. Absolutely not. No way, no how. But in general terms, Deion was on the record very clearly saying, hey, we've given kids an option and some of them have run off and now we're going to run some more of them off. And so we always knew there was going to be roster churn. What I want to do is two things. Number one, I want to tell you what I think about it in a second, but I want to just paint a picture for you about how unprecedented this thing that's happening in Boulder, Colorado is. And I want to paper pop it because that's how serious these things are. They had, all right, let me scratch my nose because it itches. Let me slow down because these numbers are pretty mind-boggling. Think about college football as you know it, because nothing I'm about to say in the next 2 minutes sounds like the college football that you grew up knowing and loving. As of the start of 2022, as of the start of last season, Colorado had 83 scholarship football players. Since April 15th, they've had 34 of them into the transfer portal, but that's not like the sledgehammer number, okay? Go back to 2022 again. They enter 2022, they have 83 players on scholarship. They have 18 of them remaining. It's 2023. It's a year later. It's less than a year later, and they have 18 out of 83 remaining. What is this? It's real life. This is not Xbox. This is real life. By the way, since April 15th, like I said, they've had 34 players enter the portal. They've had 20 more transfer out this cycle than the next closest team. So take whoever number 2 is when it comes to losing guys to the portal. Colorado's 20 ahead of whoever number 2 is. I think that's Arizona State. 77%. That's the number that I'm focused on right now. Because really what I want to know is if we're going to set records here, just give it to me in percentages. How much of Colorado's total roster will have overturned in 1 year? Now, to paint that picture for you, if you're unfamiliar with the math of roster attrition, it's pretty wild if you overturn 35 or 40% of your roster. I mean, 40%, that's you're thinking in your mind, that's nearly half your team you overturned in 1 year. Just to give you an idea, like a little scale to judge this number I'm about to give you by. So I would say 40% is high. It looks like they're going to be somewhere between 75 and 80% roster turnover in 1 year, which is crazy, obviously, unprecedented. We've never seen anything close to what's happening right now happen in college football. So you've got a lot of people out there who are looking at this and saying, well, everyone's saying, wow. You got some people looking at it and saying, hey, that's exactly what Deion wanted to do. And there are other people, especially over the past 48 hours, there are other people, when you've seen some pretty good names hit the portal, and you've also seen some names decommit, and so you've seen some bad headlines mixed in with some predictable headlines, and there have been some people who have said, uh-oh, this approach is coming back to bite Deion Sanders in Colorado. So if there's a misstep that's been made here, by my estimation, maybe the misstep has been that you got this ideal vision for what your roster can be, and you have to bite the bullet a little bit in an admission of what the reality is. So what I mean is Deion and his staff walk in there. He's got a really good coaching staff, by the way. Deion and his staff walk in there, and they've got a vision. They got a picture like every other coaching staff would of what a Colorado football player is. Their critical factors that they want in every position, the minimum baseline talent level. They've got all the traits that they want in a player, and they've got a standard that they want to hold every position group to. And of course they looked at the roster they inherited and said, we've got hardly any of what we would call the right stuff in this locker room right now. A lot of it we can bring in via the portal. Here's where you can trip yourself up early on. If you don't acknowledge reality and you strictly, from the get-go, accept nothing less than what your ideal roster addition is, you forget that you're Colorado. And that still is a limitation. And what I mean by that is maybe sometimes you have to build up to eventually getting the ideal caliber of player that you want in the room. And in the meantime, you got to accept maybe some sirloin in your quest for filet mignon, or filet mignon, as we would call it back in Harris County. And I don't know this to be true because I'm not close enough to the program, but I have a feeling that maybe they have lost some guys that they needed probably to be contributors this year because of the approach that they've taken. I think Deion Sanders may look at that and he may say, collateral damage, we are not going to sacrifice our long-term vision and change our approach therein to appease the whims of some kids staying versus going in year one. Our record in year one is going to be whatever it's going to be, and in year three we'll be all the better for it. I looked at this, and I continue to look at it because it's changing even as our show happens right now. And I just want to remind you once more, it'll probably do little good, but I want to remind you once more, when teams get as much hype as Colorado has gotten, well, when teams get as much attention as Colorado has gotten, normally it's because they're extremely good. Ohio State gets this kind of attention. It's because Ohio State's extremely good. Michigan gets this kind of attention because Michigan's extremely good. Colorado's gotten the attention for other reasons, and therefore their results are not going to match in 2023 what Ohio State's or Michigan's will. And there's going to be a propensity amongst a lot of the college football public and fans and whatnot to downgrade them at every turn and to dunk on them at every turn because they're not delivering in conjunction and correlation with how much hype you've seen shouldered upon them, or I guess heaped upon their shoulders. I am going to try my best to stay out of that trap because what's realistic this year is to root for them to win 3 or 4 games. That 4 would be a really, really good year, actually. That would be realistic. There will be bad news. You're also not used to seeing Ohio State or Georgia have to deal with a ton of bad news because generally this world works out for the Georgias and Ohio States of the world. Colorado's going to have a lot of bad days mixed in here. They're going to have a lot of bad headlines mixed in. That's the way it is. If it wasn't that way, they never would have been in desperation mode to begin with. If it wasn't that way, we wouldn't have to be talking about these astronomical, never-seen-before kind of roster numbers that Deion Sanders and his staff are having to press the button on. So it's a crazy time out there right now. It's a crazy time in college football. But to end the segment in this tone, because I don't have a more professional phrase to throw at you, it just is what it is right now.